Hey guys, Manic Mercurian here, and in this video I would like to do a birth chart reading, and this reading will be for Wednesday, November 14th, 1990 at 1:30 p.m. in Tehran. I believe that's how you say that, Tehran, Iran. That's pretty cool. I love doing charts for such different places than where I'm from. So I just find that interesting. But yeah, I just want to cover kind of the basics of this birth chart. And real quick side note here before I get into this chart, I'm at over 100 subscribers now, so that's pretty cool. I'm actually at 102 as of right now, so that's just exciting, and I don't know, I'm grateful, and I'm glad to be of service. So I don't know, I just figured I'd mention that, but let's take a look at this chart here. So okay, and then this might be a little bit scattered and rambling because I don't have anything scripted, and I just pulled up this chart. But let's just see what I noticed. So first, let's just cover some of the basics. So this person has Sun in Scorpio, Moon in Libra, Pisces rising, and so yeah, it's kind of interesting. The Sun and the Moon are sort of in mutual reception, except opposite. Like this, what I mean by that is like the Sun is in the sign of the Moon's fall, and the Moon is in the sign of the Sun's fall. So this person is going to be a little bit like counterculture and different. What's interesting though is that Scorpio and Libra are very socially intelligent, and they're very good at camouflaging themselves and fitting in with people that might be actually different than they are. So this person will be an outsider or maybe an outcast, but they can play themselves off. They can fit the part. They can easily maneuver themselves and manipulate if they wish to fit in with people. This person's going to be very socially intelligent, very good at fitting in with people. So it's interesting that even though this person is different and counterculture and weird, they might not seem like it at first. It might be more convenient to sort of camouflage those aspects of themselves and come across as being very quote unquote normal or mainstream. They might they might play themselves off as being a little bit different than they actually are. They might play themselves off as being more simple and more mainstream, when in reality they are actually a little bit counterculture. They're different. They have different perspectives, maybe different beliefs than what is considered to be the norm. And then one major trend I'm noticing is that all these planets here are at the top of the chart, even the North Node and the Midheaven. Well, Midheaven is of course at the top of the chart, but all these planets are at the top of the chart. It's really just Jupiter and Mars that are, in the underworld below the horizon. So what this means is this person will have a very public personality. They'll be good at having a positive reputation. This would mostly speak to how they are at work or in public. They will sort of thrive there. They'll be good at handling attention, and let's see, yeah, pretty much just that. Let's see here, what else? And there's also this cluster here. So you've got Pluto, Sun, and Venus, and Lilith, all in ninth house Scorpio, and then Mercury is in ninth house Sagittarius. So there's sort of a stellium here. There's this big cluster all in Scorpio, and Venus is in detriment in Scorpio as well. And Mercury is in detriment in Sagittarius. There's a lot of sort of detriment energies, or like I said, the Sun and the Moon technically aren't in detriment, but they're in each other's sign of fall. So all these planets here, except Pluto, is in domicile, and Saturn, for that matter, is in domicile as well. And in my personal system, which is different, I have my own system of planetary domiciles and exaltations. I actually believe that Uranus is in domicile in Capricorn as well, but that's a different side note. But my point is, there's a lot of planets either in detriment or domicile, or the Sun and the Moon are in each other's sign of fall. So there'll be a lot of aspects of this person that are different, that don't fit in, that might feel unlucky. But there's other aspects like Saturn that are, in domicile. So the Saturn aspect being in Capricorn, that gives you a better chance of having a father figure who was actually present and authoritative and paternalistic, and like all the things that we sort of hope our fathers to be, I think. Because Saturn is not only in domicile in Capricorn, but it's also in a very nice position in the 11th house. The 11th house is one of the most auspicious, the best, most abundant houses, because it's not only very visible in the sky, but it's also going up. Both 12th house is going up too. These planets are rising, but 11th and 10th are not only rising, but they're also near the top of the sky. So Saturn being in Capricorn, that would indicate that you perhaps had a father that did things that a father should do, that set a good example and was authoritative and respectable and all that type of stuff. I think just having Saturn there doesn't guarantee all that, but it definitely suggests having a father who was very much fatherly, very much fit the bill in that regard. So, and that's really nice, because that's not always something that people have. A lot of times there's aspects that indicate you don't have a father like that. But yeah, and Saturn is also direct, so that would even more so indicate a good father figure. But let's talk about the inner planets again. So, and the Scorpio cluster. I'm not done talking about that either. Let's talk about that first. So all these Scorpio energies, on the one hand, this won't be your typical Scorpio, because the moon is in Libra. Libra is a very different sign than Scorpio. It's so much lighter and more playful. Scorpio is so heavy and intense and emotional. Libra is more detached. So this person will be much lighter, more detached than the average Scorpio. However, you also have, Pluto and Venus and Lilith in Scorpio. So there are other parts of the personality besides the ego, besides the sun, that are scorpionic as well. Excuse me. So in relationships, this person is going to be kind of scorpionic. So they might have intense emotions. Venus is in detriment in Scorpio, because it can feel... Venus is out of place in Scorpio because it's supposed to just naturally attract abundance. Venus doesn't really like to work hard to attract it what it wants. It likes to just be, flirtatious and maybe sort of manipulate other people to give them what they want, or just seem so attractive that other people or other energies just sort of naturally give it what it wants. It just attracts it, like energetically or what have you. But Venus being in Scorpio is not like that at all. Scorpio is in a sort of survival mode. Scorpio feels like it has to work for things, which could be true. It's just a very different attitude than what Venus would typically do. So Venus being in Scorpio, this person might not feel secure in relationships. They feel like out of control, especially because Venus in Scorpio has such intense emotion. I mean, it can be a good placement for just feeling those really intense feelings of infatuation for someone, or love for someone. You can just feel so deeply, and I think it can be a rush, and it can feel good to have these feelings, but at the same time it makes you very vulnerable. And then how do you react to these intense feelings and these intense feelings of vulnerability? Some do become more controlling, or undoing. Things become very unstable with that level of intense emotion that Venus and Scorpio brings. So that is a more difficult placement. But like I said, it can also be good just because it is nice. I don't know, it can be invigorating to feel so strongly for a person. And as long as it's sort of like tempered, and as long as it's a stable dynamic, Venus and Scorpio is very loyal and can be a very committed partner, and a very devoted partner. So it's not all bad. Placements are never all bad, but that's just interesting. It's whenever you have a detriment placement, it's going to be something a little bit different than what's expected, or different than what's quote unquote normal. Same thing with Mercury and Sagittarius. So Mercury is how we think, it's how we communicate. And Mercury being in Sagittarius is a philosophical and expressive sign. So, it's not that you're a terrible communicator or anything like that. Yeah, you will be, naturally expressive, especially with, you've got all these Scorpio planets, which are more heavy and maybe more secretive or internal. But then Moon in Libra is more open. Moon in Libra can be deceptive as well, especially in the eighth house. But it can be open as well. It just depends on whether it wants to be open, I guess. But between the Moon in Libra and Mercury in Sagittarius, both of these sort of open up the personality and they lighten things quite a bit. They lighten up that scorpionic heaviness. Yeah, so the way you think and the way you feel, it'll be lighter. It'll be lighter and more, maybe more detached or more playful than perhaps your typical Scorpio. Anyway, back to Mercury and Sagittarius. So, yeah, so Mercury and Sagittarius, it's not all bad. So you will be expressive and you will be, I think this personality very much could understand abstract concepts. And again, it's not something that you might realize with this personality at first. I don't think this person would come across as being like intellectual. But I think they actually do have a pretty high capability for, grasping very complex or abstract concepts. But they just might not lead that on. But with Mercury and Sagittarius, the reason why it's in detriment is because with Sagittarius, there's not so much an ability to prioritize or to analytically assess the value of something in comparison to something else. So Mercury, what Mercury does, especially in Virgo and Gemini, it's always assessing everything and prioritizing, this is more important than that, or I'm going to do this first because it's more important than that other issue. Or, it analyzes the pros and cons of things and can compare values like that and assess things. With Sagittarius and Pisces for that matter, these signs don't really think like that. They more go with whatever they're feeling in the moment. It's much more subjective and not so much detached and objective. They're more just feeling what they're feeling, and so whatever they're assessing, they might think is very important or very unimportant, but really it's very subjective and depending on whatever's in their heart at the moment. And it's not wrong at all. It's just a sort of different way for Mercury to operate. And sometimes the downside would be that you might have a hard time assessing the weight of different things. But again, this is a intellectual sort of combination, so you would be. I think this person would be intelligent. It's not about whether you're intelligent or unintelligent. It's just that Mercury and Sagittarius, it does sort of lack that ability to, assess the value of things, especially in reference to other things, if that makes sense. But still, definitely not the worst placement for Mercury. It is in detriment, but like I said, Sagittarius is still expressive and philosophical. And also, all of these planets I'm talking about, they're all in the ninth house. So, again, you're going to be very good at receiving attention or commanding attention in public spheres of your life, of your world. But also ninth house, the ancients said that the ninth house is all about the church or, religion. And it's not just about religion per se. It can be about religion, but it's about like philosophy and, it's one of the highest houses. So it has to do with belief systems and, the highest forms of knowledge. It has to do with universities as well. So you will want to ask kind of the bigger questions, and this could be part of why you're into astrology, is because you do want to ask the bigger or more complex or philosophical questions of life. I do think this is a very philosophical personality. What else? Let's talk about, I just don't want to forget Lilith. So let's talk about Lilith and Venus and Mars. So these are sort of the more romantic and sexual planets. Lilith isn't a planet, it's a point in space, but these are the more sexual and romantic placements. And with two of these, Venus and Lilith are both in ninth house Scorpio. So this personality will probably be very sexual. Scorpio doesn't always flaunt its sexuality. You can usually sense it with them. Like, they can have that sort of sensual or sexual vibe to them, but I wouldn't say they're the most like promiscuous sign by any means. They usually keep that. They're very internal. So they do have that magnetism about them, that attractiveness, or that that vibe that could be like sexual maybe, but they're not super promiscuous. It's more internal. So Venus and Lilith being there, yeah, you will be very sexual, but then you're gonna want deep connections though. That's what I'm saying. You're not gonna just want to be like a big slut or anything like that. And not that there's anything against that, but this personality in particular, you're gonna want those deeper connections. You're gonna want to really connect with someone mentally and emotionally, in order to be very sexual with them. So you are very sexual, but that mental and emotional connection is very important to you as well. This personality seems more committed to me with all these Scorpio placements. So I think you'd really want to be maybe more monogamous and, really explore the depths of someone, they're psychologically and emotionally and mentally and sexually for that matter. And like, just really, really have that close connection. I think you'd very much desire very close connection. I should mention I'm using equal houses, so this may be different if you use Placidus or whole sign or a different house system. I use equal houses, but okay. Anyway, but yeah, Venus and Lilith would both suggest what I just said, wanting deep, being very sexual, but wanting to explore sexuality mostly in very deep connections. Mars, on the other hand, is in a very different place, so it does stand out because it's at the very bottom of the chart, the very base of the chart. So it's more hidden in the fourth house, right near the IC. And it's also in Gemini, which is also very different, very detached, playful sign that likes a lot of diversity and variety. So that's very different than all these kind of heavy Scorpio energies. And this is the more masculine side of sexuality. So being a female, being a heterosexual female, this would be sort of the man you would be attracted to. So you might be attracted to a man who's more detached or more, not so heavy. And your Sagittarius Mercury and your Libra Moon would favor this as well. You'd be attracted to a man who's more, maybe more intellectual, more lighthearted, and more someone who knows a lot about a lot of different things. You're also going to want a person who is maybe a little bit complex because you want variety. Even though you do very much want to be with like maybe one person who you can have a deep connection with, I think you might desire a lot of complexity in one person, and then that will keep you interested. Someone who has different sides to them, someone probably very intelligent with Gemini, and this is also. I should mention the descendant as well, because the descendant has very much to do with who you'd be attracted to and what your needs are in a long-term relationship, especially. And being in Virgo, this sort of matches with Mars and Gemini. So these are both the signs ruled by Mercury, and so you're gonna want a man who is intellectual, intelligent, who knows a lot about many different things. Maybe who's more lighthearted than some of these Scorpio energies that you have. Also, you're gonna want a man who's earthy, and which makes sense because your chart does sort of lack Earth. You just have these three outer planets in Earth: Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus. But there's no inner planets at all in Earth at all. But then you do have the descendant in Virgo. So I think you'd be very much attracted to a man who maybe has a bit of Earth in his chart, who's stable. That would feel really nice for all your Scorpio placements as well, because someone with some heavy Earth in their chart, it'll make you feel grounded and secure, and feeling grounded and secure will make you feel like you can kind of rely on this person, and then that will totally click in with all this Scorpio energy and make you feel like you can really open up with someone and trust them, and that will make you feel like you can play more, and you can have the best of both worlds, where you can be, you can have that deep commitment and that trust and reliability, but then also that, because you have that deep connection, you can have that more lighthearted, fun-spirited playful side of your personality as well. You can also explore that with this person. So yeah, you'd be attracted to someone, um, someone intellectual probably, and I don't know, maybe earthy, grounded, but also airy, intellectual, multifaceted. Okay, what else? I haven't talked about the ascendant yet. Ascendant in Pisces. Ascendant in Pisces, midheaven in Sagittarius. So there's a strong Jupiterian connection since Jupiter rules over your ascendant and your midheaven, and then Jupiter is in sixth house Leo. Okay. Ascendant Pisces. One thing I'll say about ascendant in Pisces is you may feel very familiar to people, and that also connects with all your Scorpio and Libra energies as well. People may meet you and think, "Oh, have I met you from somewhere?" And they haven't. They're a complete stranger, but you feel comfortable to people. You feel familiar to people, and part of it's all your watery energy and the moon in Libra. Let's see here. Ascendant in Pisces. You may have grown up in circumstances which had a lot of change. You may have maybe moved around a lot. Oh, you may have also been kind of alone a lot as a child. And I've heard it's normal for Gemini, having IC in Gemini, that you may have talked to yourself a lot as a child because you didn't have anyone to talk to and your mind was like very active. So you may have been very imaginative and maybe kind of talked to yourself to some extent. But what this turns into as you mature in age is that you have midheaven in Sagittarius, so you can be very charismatic, and even besides having all these planets at the top of your chart, you have midheaven in Sagittarius as well, which is really great for being charismatic and being in the limelight. So yeah, you definitely have great skills with people. You're very personable. I think it's easy for people to connect with you. But again, there's these deeper layers of your personality which I don't think a lot of people will access. But on the outside, you do have this aspect of yourself which is very relatable and easy for people to understand, or at least feel like they understand it. But yeah, you have these deeper layers as well. Okay, and then I haven't talked about the nodes, and this is kind of interesting. So the north node is at 0 degrees Aquarius. Therefore, the south node is at 0 degrees Leo. So growing up, you may have been very fiery and confident and sure of yourself. You may have been precocious. You may have wanted to talk with the adults, maybe, or older kids. You may have, like, south node in Leo is very open and fiery and confident, and it matures very quickly. So you have this natural approach, this natural tendency of being almost a little bit like a Leo. The south node is very underrated in astrology. It actually does control, or does relate to a lot of our astrology. So yeah, south node in Leo, you will be sort of a cheerful, upbeat personality, and this sort of blends in with your other astrology as well. You do seem cheerful, upbeat, relatable, charismatic. And then as you mature, something that it won't initially come as easy to you, but something that you'll get better at over time is being maybe more detached and more stable or objective. That's something that I could see you struggling with. I do see a lot of strength in this chart for sure, especially with people. Something you might struggle with though is being kind of objective. You may feel so much in the moment that it's hard for you to be detached. But you do have Moon in Libra though, which is detached. So I mean, you do have that. That would help a lot with this, I suppose. But at the same time, Moon in Libra is always weighing and assessing everything, but it may still be hard for you to have a good understanding of your own situation, being so immersed in it. It might be really good for you to have close friends you can sort of rely on to keep you kind of grounded, or to I don't know, to give you some clarity maybe, because I think we all experience that to some extent. Like it's easier to give other people advice than it is to give ourselves advice, if that makes sense. But I think especially with your personality, it might be hard for you to keep a firm grasp of understanding your own like situation, if that makes sense. But I think astrology would help that, and I think having someone close to you with like maybe some earth and maybe some air, but especially earth, that might be good. Having a really close earth friend, or maybe earthy lover, someone very earthy, I think would be good for you, since you lack earth and your descendant is an earth. Let's see. And yeah, and then Saturn is in Capricorn as well. So yeah, so this suggests to me that you're not very earthy. So you can get a little bit ungrounded at times. And, North Node is in the stoic, very detached sign of Aquarius. So even with Moon in Libra, you might still have challenges there. So I think as you mature in age, you might learn to be just a little bit more stoic. Like you can still keep all your bubbly and warm energy. Like there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever, and it's actually a great strength. You can keep all of that, but also learn how to be, when it's appropriate, how to be more detached or more holistic in your thinking, and like seeing the bigger picture rather than just whatever's going on in the current moment, if that makes sense. I know that sounds a little bit constructive criticism-y, but yeah, don't get me wrong. This is a great personality though. And I was gonna say as well. So the moon is in detached Libra, but it's in the eighth house, so it may not be super active. Like you may have a hard time knowing what you're feeling at any given moment, even though you do feel very deeply. On the other hand, you might have a hard time knowing what you're feeling with Moon in eighth house Libra. So yeah, I think having some very close earthy people in your life would sort of remedy some of the challenges there. But also this, with North Node and Saturn, these just represent aspects of our life that are challenging at a young age, but that we naturally sort of step into as we mature. So, so as you mature, you'll actually become very good at thinking holistically and being maybe more detached, or thinking about what's best for the group or what's best in the long run rather than the immediate. You'll actually become very good at that, as you get a little bit older. And 1990, so you're 31. So yeah, you just had your Saturn return very recently. So you may have had a lot of development over the last few years, since you just had your Saturn return. So you may have had to grow up, quite a bit and have more responsibility, especially with Saturn being in domicile. It'd be sort of an intense Saturn return. So yeah, you may have just had some gains in these areas and become more holistic and more disciplined, maybe, or more thinking about the long term or about the big picture, if that makes sense. And I'm getting toward the end here. I've covered most of what I want to say. Mars and Gemini, you can be very witty. You can have that you can have a good sense of humor, because you can have that like quick thinking. You'd be good at like debating or coming up with what's it called, like being like, you'd be good at improv, like coming up with lines or things that are funny, or debating like very quickly. You can come up with those lines or those funny words or catchphrases. So Mars and Gemini is always fun for that. Fun at debating or joking, or it has that witty banter about it that can be really fun. What else? Your chart ruler is Jupiter, and it's sort of in an interesting place, because, like I said, just like with Mars, both of them are below the horizon when all your other planets are above the horizon. But yeah, it's interesting, and especially Jupiter in the sixth house. Sixth house is sort of a more problematic, challenging house. It deals with like challenges in life, sort of. So Jupiter's in this very fiery, abundant sign of Leo, but in this sort of problematic, challenging house of the sixth house. Yeah, so that to me suggests, and it's kind of hidden away, it's tucked away. because when planets are in the sixth house, it means they just set. They just, in a way, they just sort of died or fell asleep. They just went, out of our vision, and into the darkness. So that ruling over your ascendant and your midheaven is very interesting to me. It's like, I think it hints at something that I've already covered. It hints at this pattern of you being very expressive and very like bubbly and cheerful and charismatic. Like, you're so easy to connect to and to get to know and to be friends with. But at the same time, there's this a whole other aspect of your personality which people don't even see. It's not even on their radar. So I think that's one huge theme here. You are charismatic, bubbly. You can be a cheerleader. You can be, you can bring that cheerful energy, that sunny disposition. But you can be deep at the same time. There's this. You might seem more shallow and just bubbly and light at first, which is true that there is that aspect. But there's also this really deep side of your personality, which I don't think people might often see. And I think Jupiter in Leo in the sixth house, ruling over the ascendant and the midheaven, it just kind of accentuates, but epitomizes that whole concept. And we experience that with these fall signs as well. You have so much of your personality in Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius, which are the signs of fall. That's what fall is all about. It's about social graces, and this might sound weird talking about all these aspects, all these themes that just in a season, but when we experience planets in those signs, we focus more on fashion and sexuality and romance and interpersonal relations. Really, there's a lot going on. We are focusing on having those social graces, but at the same time, there's a lot of emotion that comes with those signs. So anyway, my point is, yeah, you do have that charisma about you. You're very easy to get to know, very friendly. But you have this deeper, maybe not so understood part of your personality as well. And I think the reason it's not understood is because people probably don't even notice it. I think they don't even notice that it's there at all. They just don't have that understanding. And maybe every now and then you might meet someone who you can connect with on a deeper level, and they might actually see those parts of your personality. But I think generally speaking, especially in public or at work, people would know you to be light and bubbly. They don't realize that you're like actually kind of very deep, and you can be very intellectual as well. And I think that's a nice place to end. I think that kind of sums up some of the major themes in your chart. And I think I said pretty much what I wanted to say. So I hope that resonates. Please let me know. You can email me or leave a comment if you wish, or if you want to stay anonymous, you can just email me. But yeah, let me know how I did. Let me know what resonated, or if anything I said didn't resonate with you. Usually I'm pretty good, but yeah, I always like feedback. And yeah, this was fun. It's an interesting chart. I like it. But yeah, hopefully that resonated. Okay, well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Take care.